See by the green vestments that Deacon and I are wearing that we now have officially returned to the Sundays of Ordinary Time, which also means now it's been 4 months since we last left Ordinary Time. So there's been quite a few things happening in the flow of the Gospel of Luke, all of which we're not going to talk about. Summary is Jesus has been healing, feeding, and teaching. But in the midst of that, one of the sections we didn't hear was also Jesus' sharing from his heart this future, that he would suffer, that he would be put to death on the cross, and he would be raised up on the third day. That's the message, and with that in mind, Jesus begins now in Luke's Gospel a journey to Jerusalem, where these things will take place. And that's where today's gospel picks it up. As Jesus is walking, there are 3 potential disciples who he encounters. Would-be disciple number 1 simply says, "I will follow you." Would-be disciple number 2 is invited by Jesus, "Follow me." To which he responds, "Allow me to bury my father who died." Would-be disciple number 3 again takes the initiative. "I will follow you, but allow me to say goodbye to my family." As you can imagine, there's a lot more to the conversation than just those words. For would-be disciple number 1, he says, "I will follow you." And Jesus' response is, "That's wonderful, but let me tell you this. We are going to be walking by faith. There's not going to be a lot of security. There's not going to be a lot of comfort with what we are doing. Are you ready to walk a journey in the unknown future by faith alone?" I think about some things. Have any of you been traveling and for either didn't have a hotel or campsite reservation and you tried to find one? How did that work for you? It almost cost me a friendship once. We were traveling to Milwaukee, my friend Stephen. This is pre-cell phone, by the way. And we had not made reservations, and so we looked at one place, and it's like, oh, a little costly, and another place. And we're just driving around the highway around Milwaukee, and it's like, I'm not sure about the neighborhood, we're doing this. And finally he just said in frustration, "Pick one!" Like I said, almost cost a friendship. We want to be secure. We want to know some things that are going on. And yet that's what Jesus is inviting us to, just the opposite. Are you ready to walk with me to an unknown future? I somehow got a sense of what our friends at Room at the Inn go through each and every day. Where am I staying tonight? And where am I staying tomorrow night? So am I ready for that? While I prefer to be a little bit more in control and know what's going on. Would-be disciple number 2 is invited by Jesus, "Follow me," and he says, "Allow me to bury my dead father." And Jesus' response comes across as quite harsh, doesn't it? It's like, did you have a bad night? What's the story here, Jesus? Let the dead bury the dead. A little nuancing of the story. The man's father has not died yet. If he had died, he wouldn't have been there. He would have been already tending to the family, preparing burial rites, grieving the death of their father. This is a future event, and the future is not sure when this is happening. So it's really what he's trying to say is that proverbial, "I'll get back to you later on that." I understand the invitation, but not right now. Would-be disciple number 3. He too volunteers and says, "I will follow you, but allow me to say farewell to my family." Seems like a wonderful thing to do. I always imagine, though, under his breath, he's going, "I hope they talk me out of this." 3 different stories, 3 different disciples, of which we are represented by them. Each of us are invited into a relationship of discipleship with Jesus. We may be invited to walk with him into a future unknown. We may be invited as a disciple to truly embrace the gospel and live it to its fullest. We might be invited to invest ourselves in the life of the parish, or invest ourselves in a charitable organization or ministry. We might be invited to truly serve others in freedom and out of love. Whatever it might be, I think that's what's symbolized by today's gospel. Jesus inviting to make a commitment to one of those things, all of them, whatever it looks like. And am I ready to do that? I think it's something that we need to continually review and renew. It's not like a one-time thing. It's always about, how am I committing myself to the gospel? How am I committing myself to walking with Jesus? How am I committing myself, investing myself? How am I serving others in freedom and love? And that's what we are invited to do. How do we respond? I will share two stories with you about two people who truly responded to that invitation, that commitment, unconditionally. The first one is actually Elisha, from the first story that Lisa proclaimed today. It's his call story. Elijah, through the word of God, has chosen Elisha to be his successor. And so he places on him a mantle. And his words are, allow me to say goodbye to my family. But there's, with the details, some interesting things to know about. It says that he has 12 yoke of oxen, which means a couple things. One, he has 12 plows. You have traveled, you've seen these farmlands today if they're not underwater. And how many tractors? Maybe 1, 2, take care of everything. But to think about 12 plows, it's a little affluent. And to have 12 yoke of oxen means he has a minimal 12. He could have 24 oxen. That's a lot. And what happens as he hears this call and makes this commitment? What does he do? He slaughters and butchers all the oxen. This is an unbelievable meal coming up, folks. And he uses his plows. It's like he's saying goodbye. And so that's how he truly makes a break to go, I'm all in for what I'm about. Second person to introduce you to is someone I just met this past week at a conference. She was a speaker. Her name is Sister Norma Pimentel. She is a missionary of Jesus. Currently, she's the executive director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley. That is in the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas. It's right on the Rio Grande. The most known city of that diocese is McAllen, Texas. It's a port entry from Mexico to the United States. She was telling us her story. Her story of, like, we have Catholic Charities here in St. Louis with a variety of ministries. One of the ministries of her Catholic Charities in South Texas is to care for a respite center for immigrants. Again, you know the stories, but it's a story of those who migrated, seeking asylum, have been processed by the Border Patrol, and now wait. Wait to be returned, wait for further word, and the conditions are living in squalor. There's no facts to deny that. Sister, as executive director and empowering so many people, both staff and volunteers, is about responding to these people right now, caring for them with the dignity of Christ. Since 2014, this respite center has cared for 100,000 people and children. Sister told their story, her own personal story, but an awareness about how do we respond to those of our brothers and sisters. She had 200 priests' hearts melted. Not an easy task to do. And how can we respond, both now and in the future? Both in Sister and Elisha, I see two people who really said, I am all in. on what I'm trying to do as a disciple, and inviting us to do it also. It may be all in, it may be, here's what I can do. Again, the invitation to review and renew a commitment. That's what each of us are about. So again, whether it is about walking with Jesus the road to Jerusalem, whether it is about embracing and living out the gospel to its fullest, perhaps it is simply investing yourself in the parish, in a charitable organization. Perhaps it is also simply serving one another out of freedom and love. Whatever it is, what is God calling you to now, today, that you could make a commitment to? And how will I respond as a disciple?